Oremus. Omnipotens et aeterni Deus, actiones nostras omnes aspirando praeveni, et adjuvando prosequere, ut cuncta nostra operatio, et praesertim hoc quod nunc agridimur opus, a te incipiat, et per te coeptum finiatur, quatenus sanctum nomen tuum glorificemus, et misericordia tua vitam aeternam consequamur, per Iesum Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen.
Good afternoon. It is my happy duty as Principal and Vice-Chancellor to welcome you to this virtual degree conferral ceremony for the 2021 summer graduation at the University of St Andrews. Some of you will already have recognised that these proceedings are not taking place in the Younger Hall, which has been the conventional setting for our graduation ceremonies since it opened in 1929. The Younger Hall is currently undergoing refurbishment to revitalise this venue for the use of future generations. We are instead celebrating these rituals in Parliament Hall on South Street, a venue that refers to a much older tradition of graduation. Parliament Hall and the chamber above, the King James Library, commenced construction in 1612 to provide the university with its first proper library following increasing donations of books, including around 200 volumes from King James VI and I, and it was completed in 1643. Parliament Hall is so named because it housed the Scottish Parliament of 1645 to 1646, when Parliament retreated to the safety of St Andrews, whilst Edinburgh and much of Scotland were gripped by plague, an apt parallel to our ongoing present circumstances. Graduation was hosted in the ceremonial space of Parliament Hall and in the King James Library from at least 1696 until the early 20th century. The tradition of graduation extends back even further and has taken place at St Andrews since the second decade of the 15th century. Of all our traditions, it is our most cherished and significant, and some of the rituals that were established in the 1400s remain to this day. The core of the graduation ceremony is the conferral of degrees. Each graduand receives their degree and thus becomes a graduate, transitioning from a member of our student community into the next stage of their life. But while this ceremony is a practical one, it is also a ritual of celebration. At graduation, we recognise the sustained endeavour our students have undertaken, the commitment they have demonstrated to acquiring knowledge, and the rewards they have gained. The students who graduate today are radically different people from those who joined us as entrants. So we also celebrate the journey they have come on, the skills and friendships they have developed during their time in St Andrews. And we offer thanks to the academics, professional staff, and family members and friends who have given them the support and encouragement necessary to reach this milestone. I recognise that this virtual conferral ceremony is not in the format that our students envisaged because of continuing restrictions which limit our capacity to host large gatherings. But you, our graduating class, are to be commended. For over a year, your classes, assessments, and research projects have taken place virtually and only in person where possible. Each of you has adjusted brilliantly and resourcefully to these circumstances, and, in a time of great isolation for many, you have fostered unity and connection, demonstrating the resilience of the St Andrews spirit and the strength of the ties that connect us, however separate we may be. Today's conferral ceremony allows us formally to award your degrees, an important step in allowing you to move on to the world of work or further study. But for those of you who wish to participate in a traditional ceremony, we will welcome you and your families to St Andrews for an in-person graduation event when it is safe for us to gather again. We have commenced planning for 3 successive weeks of graduation celebrations in June 2022. Which will host the graduating class of 2022 alongside the returning classes of 2020 and 2021 who were not able to complete this ritual in person. It will be an immensely sweet occasion when we can celebrate together. Our physical separation does not detract from the significance of the graduation rites. To recognize the felicity and formality of this ritual, we have preserved in this virtual format many core elements of our graduation tradition. The first of these you have already witnessed as St. Salvator's Chapel Choir initiated proceedings with a rendition of the Gaudeamus, and the University chaplain, the Reverend Dr. Donald McEwen, delivered the opening prayer. As Principal and Vice-Chancellor, it is my privilege to preside over these ceremonies and to provide this welcome. And in a few minutes, the University's Chancellor, the Right Honourable Lord Campbell of Pittenweem, will add his own words of congratulation. Following the introductions, we will proceed to the conferral of degrees upon students at bachelor's, master's, and doctoral level. I will call upon the Dean of the respective faculty and ask them to present each graduand for their award. The Dean will read the name of each student, and I will bestow the degree upon them in absentia with Latin phrases according to our tradition. As one example, to confer degrees of Master of Arts, I will use the words eus absentes magistros artium renuncio, which translates to, I announce that they have received the degree of Master of Arts in absentia. This is the precise moment at which each graduand becomes a graduate. After the conferral of degrees, I will award the Principal's Medal to one of our new graduates. The winners of this medal are selected for their outstanding academic excellence and personal endeavour. I will introduce this ceremony's awardee, and we will briefly hear a few words from them. At these ceremonies, it is tradition that the University invites guests of honour to address our new graduates, inspire them and wish them well as they progress to the next stage of their lives. I am very pleased that today's guest speaker is Hazel Irvine, an alumna of our university and a broadcaster, sports commentator, and writer of global renown. Hazel has kindly recorded a graduation message for you each to reflect on, and we are honoured to have her contribute to our proceedings. A musical interlude will follow Hazel's words, after which I will deliver the graduation address to close our proceedings. The ceremony will formally conclude with the benediction and a musical contribution from the Chancellor's piper, Alistair Robinson. Here in St Andrews, the teachers and staff who have supported you are immensely proud of your accomplishments. But this ritual does not mark the end of your association with St Andrews. You are joining a vital community of alumni who have positively shaped the world around them for 608 years and who support one another in the present. So while you are graduating, you are not leaving our community, but taking the next step in your St Andrews experience. It is our sincere hope that you will return next year to celebrate your graduation in person with your friends and family, academics and professional staff, and that you will continue to engage as a St Andrean throughout your life. I am now pleased to introduce the Chancellor of the University of St Andrews, the Right Honourable Lord Campbell of Pittenweem.
Thank you, Principal. One of the privileges of being Chancellor of this great university is the duty of conferring degrees personally upon those who are graduating today. But these are not normal times, and the fact that we meet at all, even if only virtually, is the result of the remarkable efforts and commitment of the staff of this university at all levels, whether they be academic, administrative, or providing services. And all of this under the leadership of the Principal and her senior colleagues. To all of them, I extend our thanks. Today, as you graduate, you will formally become members of the academic family of Scotland's oldest university. A rare privilege, but one which you richly deserve. But that privilege brings with it both opportunity and responsibility, because you will also become an ambassador for the university, an ambassador for its values, wherever you go and whatever you do. We hope that we have made an impression upon you, because you have certainly made an impression upon us. You will always be welcome here, but today you go with our blessing, our good wishes, and our congratulations.
Thank you to the Chancellor for those generous words of wisdom and congratulation. We will now proceed to the main part of today's ceremony, the conferral of degrees. Decanus Facultatis Artium.
Vice-Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree of Master of Arts with Honours in absentia on Isabel Abebrisi, Nitya Agarwal, Nina Atkinson, Oliver Blewett, Meave Boakes, Sarah Bollag, Callum Booth, Morgan Brannan, Alexander Brunner, Robert Burton, Rosie Burton, Fanny Olga Kamya, Margaret Carlow, Ruby Carter, David Clegg, Diana Coleman, Charlotte Corbett, Stella Coulter, Steph Coulter, Joseph Curran, Tamara de Resende Leifheit, Lara Doby, Grace Doody, Emma Duggan, Gabrielle Edward, Daria Frost, Claire Gordon, Sarah Graham, Bradford Grossman, Carrie Grumka, Alistair Haddow, Mia Eleanor Hansen, Cordelia Hare, Olivia Harrison, Catherine Hawley, Sabine Henshaw, Philip Holtz, Lyle Horn, Joseph Horsnow, Gabriella Hudson, Samuel Hyatt, Toby Irwin, Lo Chia Yi Joey, Alice Jones, Christopher Jones, Min Ji Kang, Jacqueline Kaplan, Spencer Carrington, Anna Kelly, James Kelly, Leo Kelly, Freya Kenny, Caitlin Kilpatrick, Samuel Kingsley Freed, Drew Nouse, Silke Kuhn, George Lee, Christopher Leask, Tilly Lehman, Alice Lele, Rachel Lewis, Erin Larandi, Rose McCauley, Matthew MacDonald, Kate McLachlan, Daisy Mearson, Robert Messam, Satyajit Mohanan, Syra Monan, Graham Moore, Charlotte Morris, Nicole Moschel, Claire Nelson, Layal Niasi, Connor Norris, Charlotte Perkins, Andrew Perry, Liberty Potter, Charles Quimby, Robbie Ryside, Anastasia Rack, Isabel Remus, Caitlin Rhodes, Isabella Roberts, Carolina Sajdeva, Yong Tzu So, Isabella Sheridan, Olivia Sim, Tom Simpson, Jackson Stafford, Cole Staples, Alexandra Sugg, Hussein Sultanli, Dagny Tepper, Christopher Toward, Jordan Urquhart Cavell, Seth Walton, Quinn Webster, Darius Wyatt, Morgan Young, Georgia Demosthenes, Alexander Brown Hernandez, Thomas Cochrane, Grace Gressett, Matavi Kakulavarapu, Jacqueline Lane, Nock Lay, Alexandra Lengel, Erin McBride, Rana Meir, Ashia Meshkovich, Elizabeth Pugh, Viktor Radchenko, Veronika Rodionova, Gabrielle Selby, Amelia Travis, Tana Vickery, James Wearmouth, Jack Windling, Iseng Han, William Burns, Maya Kin, Brooke Siegler, Christopher Anderson, Ryan Blackman Hodges, Hannah Burns, Adam Corthery Stern, Thomas Chalmers, Flora Edmiston, Jack Engelhardt, Aneska Ferreira, Saskia Giraud-Reeves, Hannah Graham Brown, Matthew Heritage, Joseph Hopkinson, Christopher Kulukundis, Shivani Kumar, Christopher Leacock, Georgia McPherson, Joshua Mendelson, Keith Minami, Manhattan Murphy Brown, Louise Palmer, Madeleine Reed, Sophia Ring, Jacob Roberts, Annabel Robinson, Anna Rocha Benatti, Alexander Shellikens, Isabel Sturt, Hampton Toole, Charlotte van Nordwijk, Alexander Whittam, Ava Hariri Kia, Lucas de Cavallo, Christopher Hughes, Wilson Jones, Helena Matza, Alcira Silva Ava, Sydney Starsick, Natalia Stone, Alicia Tisserand, Anna Paola Pandolfi di Rinaldis, Grace Chalmers, Isabella Cuervo Lorenz, Riley Flick, Jacqueline Gibson, Ethan Linden, Elodie Phillips, Francesca Alavian, Teresa Arumardi, Ruby Bell, Elizabeth Boland, Jade Fargaston, Rebecca Hamer, Marilee Higgins, Ella Jackson, Onyu Audrey Leung, Emily Müller, Ella Newbrook, Harriet Allen, Rebecca Chandler, Olivia Phillips, Hannah Smith, Ailey Marshall, Caris Nuttall, Juliana Petriff Shaw, Charlotte Coldwell, Linda Eckerfeldt, Monica Gregory, Noah Herford, Leonie Höher, Elodie Marin, Pilar Olivieri, Leah Weimann.
Eus multos absentes magistros artium renuncio.
Vice-Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree of Bachelor of Arts International with honours in absentia on Jenny de Paul, Andrew Outkirk, Fang Wei Chen, Yu Hui Fuang, Aubrey George, Victoria Haver, Yi Hui Liang, James Liddy, Xin Yuan Ma, John Mann, Erica Stephen, Charles Whiteley, Ching Wen Zhang, Caroline Gant, Maud Purinton, Louise Strange, Sarah Clark, Lydia Mackey, Samuel Nussbaum, Sayana Saidayo, Madeleine Sisson, Caitlin Snook, Corey Stubanas, Grant Wong, Samantha Bailey, Magdalena Baranowska, Amanda Bernier, Sky Clark, Megan Corkland, Ian Doty, Christina Durham, Elizabeth Kukin, Rebecca Lowe, Sage Miller, Katya Okok, Chen Si Pan, Lincoln Pang, Eliza Quinn, Andrew Richardson, Catherine Weinsheimer, Mei Hui Yang.
Eus absentes baccalaureus artium renuncio.
Vice-Chancellor, I ask you to confer the postgraduate diploma in absentia on Antje Schiller.
Eam absentem diplomatum renuncio.
Vice-Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree of Master of Letters in absentia on Paul Dunn, Paul Fryer, Maria Alejandra Gentil, Michael Glausch, Andries Grunewald, Kyle Hardcastle, Thea Lindmark, Martin Malach, Henry Middleton, James Staples, Catherine Wales, Catherine Williamson, Samuel Wright.
Eos absentes magistros literarum renuncio.
Vice-Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in absentia on Tamara Alaum, Kurt Basina, Flaminia Incheki, Sneha Tumu.
Eos absentes doctores philosophiae renuncio. I should now like to introduce the Principal's Medal. This award was inaugurated 12 years ago with a gift from 3 anonymous donors and is supported by Ede and Ravenscroft, believed to be the oldest firm of tailors and robe makers in the world. The award of the Principal's Medal recognises students who display exceptional endeavour and achievement during their time at St Andrews. The awards are open to final year undergraduates and postgraduates in any discipline, and the achievements celebrated are both academic and extracurricular. For the academic year 2020 to 2021, the Principal's Medal is being presented to 3 outstanding students. Today, we recognise Leah Weimann, who has just received her Master of Arts with honours in International Relations and Sustainable Development, and I am pleased to note that she has received a first-class degree. Leah is, first and foremost, an outstandingly accomplished scholar, and she graduates with one of the most distinguished academic profiles in her entire cohort. But Leah tirelessly goes above and beyond to put her insightful theoretical understandings of politics and sustainability into practice through environmental activism, which is as compelling as it is inventive, inspiring, and impactful. Environmental work for Leah is not about assuming positions of responsibility. Instead, it is a deeply felt mission and attitude which she integrates into every area of her life, while seeking also to motivate others to become increasingly mindful of their relationship to the planet and its resources. To that end, Leah runs an advocacy website, Eco-Activists, which includes everything from vegan recipes to self-produced podcasts. And in 2020, Leah launched her first book, a collection of environmental poetry entitled Dear Earth. Leah puts passion into practice through her significant organising activities. She has taken a leading role in organising climate protests in St Andrews, including the iconic Line in the Sand demonstration in 2019. And in the 2020 to 2021 academic year, Leah served both as the Environment Officer at the Students' Association and as an advisor to the university's Environmental Sustainability Board. The chair of that board, Professor Sir Ian Boyd, the former Chief Scientific Officer at the UK Government's Department for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, wrote in the nomination that Leah has the capacity to capture the imagination of other students and has achieved this through organisation and political intelligence and hard work. Leah, in recognition of all that you have achieved, both academically and personally during your time as an undergraduate, it gives me great pleasure to bestow upon you the Principal's Medal. Leah will join us at one of the rescheduled ceremonies to receive her medal from me in person. For now, I am pleased that Leah will share a few words of her own.
My name is Leah Weimann, and when I finished school, I was guided by one main goal for my future, and that was to make a difference in the world. When I came to St Andrews in 2017, One of the key messages that stood out to me from the opening ceremony was that everybody is clever here, but what will make you stand out is your kindness. Often we think that in order to change the world, we need these big grand acts, and don't get me wrong, we have to create big changes in the world. Our future needs them. But more often than not, it is the many small things that add up to become the big things. Big acts of kindness that we share with each other, that we practice with ourselves in difficult times, and the kindness that we extend and manifest in our beautiful world. One of the most powerful and special moments, not only of my 4 years at St. Andrews, but of my life thus far, was seeing the St. Andrews community come together for the Lion in the Sand on West Sands Beach. It has been incredibly powerful to see what can be achieved if people care and stand together as communities. In this last year, I've been Environment Officer at the Students' Association and advisor to the new Environmental Sustainability Board at the university. And there's much I could say about what has changed and the things that I've done and experienced. But what I really want to say right now is that to be at a university where you feel like your voice is heard and that gives you the opportunity to make a difference is something that definitely cannot be taken for granted. I'm very honored and grateful to receive the award of the Principal's Medal, and I would like to send my heartfelt thanks to the Principal and Vice-Chancellor, Sally Mapstone, for the award, and moreover for the support and encouragement of big sustainability changes at the University of St. Andrews, from the ESB to the St. Andrews Forest, and of course the environmental sustainability strategy that will help guide the future of the university. It's difficult to say goodbye to St. Andrews in such a time as this. But what I hope is that the class of 2021, together we can take a strong sense of community with us. And it is my wish that we shall remember that it is not necessarily our intelligence and our achievements that will make us stand out in the world, but our kindness. I hope that wherever all of us end up in the world, that we won't take our blessings and our planet for granted. That we will stand up not just for what is easy, but for what is right. Our earth, our home, our mission. Thank you.
Thank you to our Principal's Medalist for their contribution, which concludes the award section of this ceremony. And it is my pleasure now to introduce our guest speaker, Hazel Irvine, who will congratulate our new graduates for the first time. Hazel was born in a maternity hospital in St. Andrews on a site that has since been absorbed into the golf estate of the Duke's Course. And these origins foreshadowed both an affinity with St. Andrews and a pursuit of sporting excellence that has extended throughout her life, as well as, of course, a love of golf. Hazel read for a Master of Arts in Art History at the University of St. Andrews, receiving her degree in July 1986. And for over 30 years since, she has been one of Britain's leading sports broadcasters, renowned for her professionalism and continuously pushing boundaries as one of the first women to attain recognition in an industry which she has utterly transformed through example. The breadth of Hazel's presenting, commentating and hosting work is beyond measure. Hazel has worked for every major UK network and on each of their foremost sports programmes, covering Wimbledon to Ski Sunday and sports from athletics to snooker. Hazel has also been a presenter and reporter for 15 Olympic Games, beginning with the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, and she carried the Olympic flame in Moscow ahead of the 2014 Winter Games in Sochi. Throughout her career, Hazel has returned unceasingly to golf, on which she first presented in 1992 for BBC Sport. and she subsequently became the first woman to undertake the lead presentation role of the Open Championship, often based at the Old Course here in town, as well as the Masters tournament in Augusta. Hazel's career has been recognised with several awards, including the Royal Television Society's Sports Presenter of the Year Award in 2007, and I am pleased to acknowledge that Hazel has accepted the offer of an honorary doctorate from the University of St Andrews, which will be awarded to her in person during the ceremonies next June. Let us turn now to Hazel Irvine, who will deliver a message for our graduates.
Hello, and thank you, Principal Mapstone, for that most generous introduction. Hello too to all of the new graduates, my fellow graduates of the University of St Andrews, and to your friends and family today. This year we're sharing this most special of occasions on various laptops and screens around the world. Alas, we can't yet share it together in the younger hall, but I understand that plans are well established for those in-person celebrations in better times next year. And believe me, that's one party you won't want to miss. So whilst this may be a virtual graduation ceremony, the achievement that underpins it and is recognised within it is authentic and is real. It is your achievement. I remember this day in my own life. In fact, it's exactly 35 years since I received my certificate in its scroll, sang the Gaudi one last time and strode off to try and find a job. And I only realised how much time had passed since then when I recently tried to help my own daughter as she set out on her own exam path. She'd stuck all kinds of quotes up on her wall to try and get her in the mood to study hard. You know the ones. Every achievement starts with a decision to try. Be awesome, or don't bother. The usual greeting card stuff. But one of them really struck a chord with me. It was a quote from Nelson Mandela which read, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Now, as a sports broadcaster and journalist, I've become used to quoting Mr. Mandela, but in the context of his observations about my great passion, sport. He said, "Sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else can." And it's my belief and lived experience that he was bang on about that. And I hope the Tokyo Olympics this summer, despite all of their challenges, will prove him right once again. But that other quote, "It always seems impossible until it's done," spoke to me about the power of perseverance. Mr. Mandela knew a thing or two about that. But so do you. Because these words also speak to us about your experiences over the last 16 months during a time of global tumult and challenge. You know, 35 years ago, I remember my last year at University of St Andrews very vividly. I loved it, but it was tough, it was nerve-wracking, and it was stressful. In fact, it was the most challenging and demanding year I'd ever faced in my young life to that point. And yet you have done it during the most challenging and demanding year that any of us can remember in our lives. It all seemed impossible for a while, right? You were largely denied access to your friends, to lecture halls, to the union, to the pub, to the sporting and extracurricular activities that are such a key part of being at university. You've gone without so much of that. Okay, some of you won't have missed the library very much, but you've also been denied access to your friends and many of the fun times too. And on top of that, many of you will have tragically lost loved ones along the way in the last few months. But how proud they would be of you right now on a day like today. We've all lost some of the liberties that we once took for granted. We've lost touch with people, literally and figuratively. And all of this has not been without cost, mentally and physically, to us either. I couldn't have got through my final exams without my best pals at uni. We helped one another through it, we shared the load, and my 5 best friends from uni are incidentally still my 5 best friends. And I've no doubt that you have found a way to stay together with your friends too, and you've helped one another over the last few months. In short, it's been a long slog. You've done a whole academic year online and largely on your own. You are the first group of graduates to have done so. And I'm sure you would want me to thank the staff at the University of St Andrews for their part in helping to make it happen. What a monumental effort it has been to give you the tools to complete your degrees. the library staff who incredibly managed to put all of the books and your reading material online, the academic staff who've recorded lectures or spoke live to you on screen, the administrative staff who kept the whole institution functioning and performing as the world-class and world-renowned university that this is. What a team effort it has been. And I remind you again of Nelson Mandela's words, "It always seems impossible until it's done." And you have done it. And because of that, you have become a key part of the most resilient of graduate cohorts ever produced by this university or any other. You have got what Sir Alex Ferguson called bounce back ability. And you've proved yourself time and time again over the last few months to be adaptable, tough, and capable of much more than you ever thought was possible. So when you eventually receive the 2021 graduation certificate in the post, it won't come with an asterisk above 2021, saying that you earned this during the darkest days of a global pandemic. But perhaps it should. But you will know, and your future work colleagues and employers will know, and they will recognise the new skills and spirit that you have garnered over the last 16 months. You have so much to offer, and so much that you can now teach others. So when life seems tough for you and others along the way after this, you can always remember that it always seems impossible until it's done. I wish you every success in the future, and I am deeply honoured to have been involved in your graduation day today.
Thank you so very much to Hazel for that rich and rewarding contribution. I would like to invite our graduates to reflect on Hazel's message and their time at St Andrews during today's musical interlude. A vocal performance by Alix de la Motte de Broen de Vauvert, a postgraduate student reading for a Master of Letters in Legal and Constitutional Studies, accompanied by Claire Innes-Hopkins.
Diesen Felsen
Thank you to Alix de la Motte de Braun de Vauvert and Claire Innes-Hopkins for that beautiful piece. As principal, it now falls to me to deliver today's graduation address, and it is customary to begin such remarks by offering wholehearted congratulations. Each of you, our new graduates, has every reason to be very proud of the degree you have earned, and we, the tutors, staff, family and friends who have helped you through, are very proud of you. A St Andrews degree is one of the finest that you can attain anywhere in the world, and that means it is not easily earned, but requires innumerable hours of concentrated study and hard work, without which you would not have made it this far. Each day at the university will have reshaped you slightly, because studying, and the contemplation it entails, demands that you consider new perspectives and fold them into your comprehension of the world. I'm sure you will all have experienced the feeling of your brain expanding at some point, either when deep into an essay, observing the results of an experiment, or listening to a particularly powerful lecture. And that addictive sensation can inspire you to keep learning throughout your life. One of your fellow alumni, Anne Carson, a professor of classics and renowned poet, describes how in this act of thinking, the mind must reach across this space between known and unknown, linking one to the other. These graduation rituals serve in part two reminders that this broadening of the mind's reach has made those of you who have just received degrees entirely different people from those who arrived to pursue them. Our congratulations are owed to you more than most. It is almost a year and a half since the pandemic reshaped the way we live and work, and we have each felt some measure of difficulty in response to the challenges it has presented. That is most acutely felt by those amongst us who have lost loved ones. But people untouched by grief have reckoned with physical separation from friends and loved ones and resultant feelings of loneliness. As students, you have also forgone many of the conventional university experiences of your final year. I want to recognise the superlative acumen and resilience you have demonstrated. The way our student body has responded to the pandemic and the community building activities have been inspirational. It is such a privilege to lead an institution at which each person has demonstrated integrity and responsibility in the face of previously unimaginable challenges, and I am truly thankful to each of you. Whilst our present time is one absolutely unto itself, analogies to the university's perseverance tell us things on which it is beneficial to reflect. Over time, you will come to see this period as one incredible phase in your lifetime, but one that you can take and use to shape the rest of your life positively and for your own and others' good. 110 years ago, in September 1911, the university celebrated its 500th anniversary. The proceedings were overseen by the then principal, Professor Sir James Donaldson, who had at that time led the university through 25 years of growth, and the ensuing sense of prosperity inspired anniversary events of jubilation and no small expense. The centrepiece was an anniversary ceremony attended by over 3,500 people, including representatives of over 145 universities and learned societies, and which was complemented by quintessential St Andrean activities such as symposia, theatrical productions, and torchlit processions. This era of prosperity was curtailed by the onset of the First World War in 1914. Dr. Norman Reed, a historian of our university, reports that our student population declined by 30% between 1912 and 1915, and that of the around 1,000 graduates, students and staff who served in trench warfare, 130 died in action, whilst many more suffered internment or lasting health difficulties. Meanwhile, those staff and students who remained at St Andrews were requisitioned into the war effort. Much as in the current pandemic, our staff worked throughout the UK to render their skills, both practical and theoretical, to the national effort, and academics provided insight into many of the health, logistical, and strategic challenges of the time. The laboratories of the Butte Medical School were reoriented to research materials with the potential for military weaponization, including mustard gas, and the chemistry laboratories of the United College were recast to meet medical demands. Central to this wartime research was James Irvine, later Sir James, a professor of chemistry who subsequently served as principal and vice-chancellor of the university for over 3 decades, from 1921 until his death in 1952. Those decades are renowned as some of the most transformative in our history, because Sir James was determined to rebuild the university after the war and develop it into the institution of global renown that it is today. Yet Irvine was a student at our university, much like any of today's graduates, who excelled and changed the landscape of our town, physically and metaphorically, through simple determination and commitment. James was born in Glasgow and developed an early passion for chemistry at school before successfully applying to be a research assistant to Professor Thomas Purdy, a chemist of distinction at St Andrews. Recalling his arrival to St Andrews in October 1895, aged 18, Irvine remarked, "I stood amazed beneath St Salvator's tower, and I knew I had come home," a sentiment many of you will share. Irvine matriculated as a student in 1896 with Purdy's encouragement and read chemistry with zoology, physics and botany whilst continuing to work as an assistant. He graduated in March 1898 as a decorated scholar and having revelled in the delights of our town, including runs along West Sands, dinners with friends, and ambles along the beaches at sunset. Irvine's path took him away from St Andrews. He moved to Leipzig to pursue doctoral research, and it was in Germany that he met his future wife, Mabel Williams, from Belfast, but training in Leipzig as a musician. Irvine returned to St Andrews in 1901, where he was joined by Mabel, whom he married in 1905, and he established himself as a researcher of global renown in the field of carbohydrate chemistry. Irvine's years in Leipzig were funded by scholarship provision, and his time as an early career researcher at St Andrews was underwritten by support from the Carnegie Trust for the Universities of Scotland, both of which attuned him to the transformative utility of philanthropy. 2021 marks 100 years since Irvine's assumption of the principalship, and his legacy can be felt around us, both physically and culturally. Irvine led the expansion of our subject offerings, and student numbers increased accordingly, from just over 350 students in 1915 to over 1,000 students in the 1930s, and with a drastically increased proportion of women. These new students required new homes, and Irvine led the fundraising for and development of some of our finest halls of residence to compensate for the squalor of his own student accommodation years earlier. His tenure saw the redevelopment of Chatton House, later expanded to become Mackintosh Hall, as well as the building of St Salvator's Hall. He led the development of the Younger Hall, which opened in 1929, as well as the redevelopment of St Salvator's Chapel, the former Student Union on North Street, and many other university properties across the estate. Irvine paired this physical reconstitution of our university with an overhaul of its reputation, and he became known globally as an academic ambassador for St Andrews, but also for British higher education more broadly, crucially establishing in particular many of the links with North America that we continue to enjoy today. The vision, courage, and love for St Andrews that Irvine exemplified gave shape to our town over a lifetime and have established a lasting legacy. All of us have the power to do that, including you who are just starting. Sir James has certainly inspired me throughout my tenure in his role as a former principal, but also as an exemplar of the commitment to excellence that is ubiquitous at our university, and which we have sought to instill in each of you during your time here. His example has adopted new resonance since the inception of the pandemic, and the steadfastness he exhibited during the war and the determination with which he sought to rebuild in its conclusion are instructive for all of us at our present historical juncture. Over a long career, Sir James never stopped thinking what he could do for the university that would improve its standing and the experience of its students and its staff. Ever to excel was emblematized by him across his life, and it can be by you in yours, in whatever you go on to do. Sir James exemplified one further thing to which each of us can attest, the knowledge and belief that one goes on being a St Andrean right throughout one's life. Wherever you are viewing this from, and wherever your path may lead from here, you are always welcome back to our town, and I invite you all to stand beneath St Salvator's Tower before too long and know you too have come home.
Oremus. Gratia Domini nostri Iesu Christi, et caritas Dei, et communicatio Spiritus Sancti, sit cum omnibus nobis in saecula saeculorum. Amen.